what they're doing, they will join the subclavian veins. And veins do what? Return to the heart. So we're going to have the thoracic and the right lymphatic. The trunks want to go there. They want to go to one of these two areas. And everything that has been drained from all these areas of the body now make its way into the subclavian veins for the return to the heart. This is showing shading based on these two collecting ducts, the areas of the body that drain into them. That right lymphatic, that's it. The right arm, the right side of the head, a little bit of the neck, right side of the neck, and a portion of the right side of the upper trunk. That's it. The thoracic duct collects everything else. Everything else moves into the thoracic duct. But these two are going to lead to the subclavian veins, the right or the left subclavian vein, which are going to make their way to the superior vena cava, which empties into the right atrium. That make sense? So if we look at the flow of lymph, I've put it right here for you. We start off lymph capillary, the afferent lymph vessel, taking the fluid into the lymph node. There's only one-way flow in the lymph node. So after it finishes in the lymph node, it leaves by way of the efferent. The vessels are going to go to a trunk. The trunks are going to go to a duct. A duct is going to go to the subclavian vein. How do we get fluid from the tissues into this system? So far, everything has depended upon pressure. It has depended upon a gradient. And how do materials like to flow? They like to flow down their concentration gradient. Like to go from areas of the high concentration to the low concentration. Therefore, we are dependent upon what happens at that tissue level with blood circulation. Because when the blood circulates, and if we make it to the capillary bed, and there is exchange of materials at the capillary bed, we're not simply just exchanging oxygen or CO2. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What else is existing in the blood?
Nutrients.
We've got nutrients.
Water. Is that?
We've got water, minerals, because if we get it down to the tissue level, it's at the tissue level where something is working, right? So we have to make sure that we get the materials into that extracellular fluid so that those cells can utilize it. Is every tissue of your body metabolically active 24/7? 365, 366 if it's a leap year. No, it's not. So, when we think about the tissues and we think about the blood flow, the tissue fluid formation, because of the materials that move into it, because the cells have used materials, the cells have given off waste, it's going to have a consistency much like plasma. And we're going to find quite a bit of stuff in there. Because if we think about cells, let's see if any of these right. Okay? We think about cells. And then I'm going to have my blood flow, is that correct? All right, let's see if third time's a charm. Okay, so I'm going to have my blood flow coming into those cells, is that correct? Now, in that blood flow, we just mentioned a lot of stuff, okay, that's carried in the blood, getting dropped off at that extracellular fluid. At the cellular level, if that cell is metabolically active and it's making the product that it makes, or if it's carrying out the cellular respiration to get the ATP, okay? If it's a cell that's metabolically active, what is the only thing that it can make?
Protein.
Huh?
Protein.
A protein. Because that's the only thing that that DNA codes for. All right? So it's going to make the protein. Well, now, if it's making a protein, we don't need that protein to stay in that extracellular fluid. We most likely need it to get into blood circulation. So in that tissue fluid, we're creating a concentration gradient. Because in that extracellular fluid, we get the products from the cell. We might be getting CO2 that was given off from the production of ATP. So we're building up a gradient in that extracellular fluid. So if that's the case, this would be the tissue fluid. And it's going to be very similar to what we see with blood plasma. Now, if that's the case, okay, it's going to be creating the pressure. If we're creating a pressure in that tissue fluid against what is found in that lymph capillary, we can have movement into that lymph capillary. Because if the pressure in that extracellular fluid, if that exceeds what's in the lymph capillary, and the movement for the fluid is only one way, the fluid's going to move into the lymph capillary. Does that make sense? So the tissue fluid formation, Rebecca, you're looking kind of.
I'm listening, yeah.
Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So now we can have the fluid move into the lymph capillary. The rest of it, okay, we're going to have blood circulation. So in that active tissue, whatever's getting produced, roughly about 10%, okay? Now, if the fluids can't move adequately, or if the activity of those lymph vessels, the capillaries and lymph vessels, is not adequate, this fluid that's being produced by those tissues can actually stay behind in some of the tissues, and that can lead to edema. Think about think about if, as I teach you class for 2.5 hours, that if I just stood here for the entire 2.5 hours and never walked, never moved, not only would you all be like totally asleep on me and be like really wishing, okay, man, is she ever gonna stop talking, okay? You'd be bored. I'd be bored. I'd feel stuff beginning to kind of like pool up in my legs and everything, you know, because I still got gravity working against me. So my blood flow is getting pushed down there, okay? But I'm not doing anything because, think about this. For the venous return, think about our blood circulation for a second. For the venous return, we're dependent on what to get the venous return back to the heart? Okay? One of the biggest things that we're dependent on skeletal muscle movement. All right? The lymph capillaries are very similar to the veins. They had a valve, so we only have one-way flow, that we don't get backflow. Okay? So guess what's important for helping keep the lymph circulating? We're completely dependent on skeletal muscle movement for lymph. Completely dependent. People who are inactive are going to have more trouble with fluid building up in their tissues. The more active you are, the more you're going to push through the lymph system. The more you can push through the lymph system, the cleaner that fluid's going to be returning to the heart, which means the cleaner it's going to be getting to the tissues of your body.